And Top Story is always brought to you by Gasem Cement the Nation Builder, also brought to you by Vodafone. It has been the longest wait for the full complement of ministerial nominees, at least in the Fourth Republic. But tonight, after nearly 4 months of waiting, the final piece in the ministerial jigsaw is here. President Akufo-Addo has, in what appears to be a massive clear-out, dropped almost all of his first-term deputy ministers for new faces. Let's now break down the list for you and help you make sense of it. My colleague and his man who joins me in the studio with details of this. And from the numbers we are looking at, we have what is the total number of deputy ministers?
Provided by the presidency.
So 39 deputy ministers. We counted 31 of that are entirely new names, new faces on the list. 39. 39 complete deputy ministers.
Yeah.
31 of that are new.
Exactly.
They were not in the Akufo-Addo's first term. That means we are talking. Let's talk about. So what's the total? Now we know this are his deputy ministerial nominees. But if you put that together with the substantive ministers already vetted and approved, what's the total?
So we have 86 ministers in total.
Okay.
And 39 are deputy ministers.
Okay. So that's what we know so far. Now, how many of the 39 deputy ministers are members of parliament?
So out of the 39 deputy ministers, we have 34 who are sitting members of parliament.
Okay, let's look.
Ministers and the regional ministers. 23 out of that number are members of parliament.
Okay.
And so 43 ministers, 23 members of parliament, 39 deputy ministers.
And the substantive ministers altogether
Absolutely.
comes down to 86. So that's the total number of his government now as we speak. Of course, we are waiting for the confirmation after the vetting of the deputy ministers. Okay. So in terms of the total MPs the substantive altogether, regional, so we are talking about how many members of parliament are now in Akufo-Addo's government. What's the total?
So when you take the 86, you have as well MPs. That put together will give you 57. And so we have 57 out of the total of 86 who are members of parliament.
Okay, so that's a significant one. So he's chosen 57 of his ministers now from parliament. We'll tell you what the percentage comparison is between this term and the previous seats, because there's too many ministers coming from parliament. And so let's look at the female dynamics.
Yeah.
How many are women?
And so when you look at the total, Evans, you have only 8. You have only 8 ministers who are female and 78 are male.
Okay, so it's a significant imbalance there in terms of the gender question. Only 8 are women, 78 are men. But there's something else we need to point out. Remember that there was a statement earlier this year from the presidency in which the president himself gives us a sense of what to expect in terms of the numbers
and the size of
his government. In that document, the president told us to expect a total of 85 ministers.
Exactly. Not more than 85.
Not more than 85. Okay, so that's could
have been less.
Yeah, it could have been less. But as we talk tonight, we are looking at a total of 86, which is one more than he promised.
Exactly.
One more than he promised.
And as it stands, there is no deputy for the environment ministry. And so we don't know if he would leave it as it is or go ahead to appoint a deputy for that particular ministry. And so that's also something that you need to consider as far as what he promised and what we have now is concerned.
Okay, let's do a comparison now with his first term, because that then begins to help you appreciate how many has he knocked off, has he reduced the size of government, or what is happening here. In his first term, we had a total of 126 ministers, and this includes deputy ministers and regional ministers, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now, let's break that down. How many of that were deputy ministers?
So he had 66 deputy ministers. And Evans, let me go ahead to tell you how many were MPs out of that list. So 66 deputy ministers, 38 were sitting members of parliament at the time. And then you had 60 ministers, 30 of whom were members of parliament at the time. So 126 ministers in the first term of President Akufo-Addo, 66 deputy ministers, 38 were members of parliament, and then you had 60 substantive ministers, 30 were members of parliament at the time.
If you do the maths, this is a reduction of by 40. He reduces government by 40 ministers in the second term compared to the first. Again, if you look at it in terms of how many ministers he appointed from parliament in the first term, he appointed 68 ministers from the first term.
Yes.
We'll tell you the percentage because the percentage tells you a whole different story shortly. And so he's in terms of actual numbers, one, he's appointed less ministers this term, and he's appointed less based on that from Parliament.
Exactly.
But if you look at it in terms of the size, that begins to make sense. But put it in percentage terms, and you begin to see a different picture.
Yeah.
And let's do that. But before we even do the percentages, let's talk about the gender balance in his first term.
So in the first males, and so again, even though the disparity is quite huge, because of the numbers, you could say that clearly this one is much more bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's do this from Parliament. That is significant. Well, the Constitution says majority, of your ministers must come from Parliament. Akufo-Addo has appointed 69% of his ministers from Parliament this term. And if you look at what he's done out of Parliament, that comes down to this 30%, 30.49%. Just first term, he had 53%
from Parliament, and you had 46% out of Parliament.
Yeah. So if you look at it in percentage terms, he's appointed.
The situation that they have in Parliament, it would influence the decision, but it's turning out quite differently.
Yeah, of course. And so that's a conversation we'll be having shortly on what this will mean for this government. Let's do the female question, right? Let's do the percentages for the female first term, second term.
So you had 15% of the total number of ministers appointed, that's 9.7 being females this second term. And so 15 for the first term, 9% for the second term.
The gender activists will not be happy looking at these percentages.
You have a drop of 6.
A drop of 6.11% percentage points there. And so that is it. Just helping significant enough. Well, we'll get into the conversation shortly. And then you're seeing that in percentage terms, he's appointed far more from Parliament than he did in the first term also. But then again, I think the thing that strikes me the most is that almost entirely the deputy ministers from the first term have lost their jobs. Only 8 have been maintained in the second term. We can speak to one of them, one of the few, I think shortly. I'm talking about the nominee for the Information Ministry, Ms. Fatimatu Abubakar. Thank you very much, madam, for your time here on Top Story.
Thanks for having me, and good evening.
Of women in this list. You definitely are just one of 8. What's your reaction to that? That makes you one of the privileged few.
Okay, first of all, let me say good evening to your cherished listeners. I would like to make a small correction. 8 women were earlier on selected as substantive ministers. 6 of them were ministers or ministers of state, and 2 others were regional ministers. In this new list, there are 10 women. So if you put this 10 together with the earlier 8, that is 18, which comprise about almost 20% of the figure, if my calculation is right.
Okay, so if you do the calculations there, and yes, we just double checking that's indeed accurate. If you do that indeed is a first term figure, which indeed you've corrected it. But yes, still that makes you one of those few ones who gets in. That must please you nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, this is a rare opportunity, and I will use this medium or your platform to thank the President of the Republic for the confidence reposed in me. I was already excited to be part of his government and legacy in any capacity at all, whether I had an appointment or not. And recognizing the fact that I was already given the opportunity to serve as a Deputy Communications Director at the Jubilee House during his first term, I can only say thank you for this honor done myself and my family and all the young people in this country. I believe it's something that I recognize and appreciate so much.
We saw you. I encountered you for the first time, watching you and talking to you during the election petition case. For many of us, that's a fair period.
Okay, first of all, I'm a lawyer and I'm an entrepreneur. I think that's one aspect of my life that is not so popular because I've worked quite privately for some time, and I've always been a political activist. I've been a student leader, maybe from junior high until I completed my first degree. I was a student. I was the JCR vice president for Ekwafu Hall during my time on University of Ghana campus. And in 2010, I contested for NUC's election. So I've been a political activist wherever I found myself. But most importantly, I'm just a regular NPP youth. I've followed the party and worked at the party headquarters for some time. And I've just made myself available at any point in time when the need arises to serve the party. Whether I'm gainfully employed or not, I've always been around. Yes. So briefly, that's what I can say about myself.
Okay, I mean,
as a lawyer and entrepreneur, that's what I've always been, and a political activist.
I mean, from what you said, it strikes me as you're very, very young. Of course, watching you on television, the information ministry. I mean, you're going to be dealing with, very difficult terrain of people like myself and other colleagues. What do you bring to the table?
First of all, I recognize the work that has been done at the ministry so far. Being that this is the second term of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government, there is definitely a template for me to copy or virtually to look at and also continue the work that my predecessors, given the opportunity, let me put it that way, given the opportunity, my predecessors had the privilege to work at that ministry in the past 4 years. What I bring to the table is to make sure I'm accessible to the media and the public, especially to understand that, we cannot sit on government policy. We cannot sit on a lot of information. It's incumbent upon us to avail ourselves for a lot of explanations when the need arises, and I recognize that. And secondly, to tap into the professional and practical experience of the substantive minister, whose work is out there for everyone to see. He's professionally and also as a minister, I believe he's been one of the best among his contemporaries. So I can only watch and learn and tap into that knowledge. But whatever assignment, given the opportunity I'm allowed to take up, of course, I will try to do my best. And also to state that having served as Deputy Communications Director at the Jubilee House, there are so many aspects of political communication or administrative aspects of the information ministry that is not lost on me. In the past, we've worked closely with the ministry from the time of Honorable Sheikh Mustafa Abdul Hamid to the Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah and their respective deputies. So I have quite an insight as to what is going to take place at the ministry, but that is not to say that I'm already an expert of what is going to happen, but to count on the experience and practices that ought to succeed as the substantive minister.
And of course, I mean, I mentioned earlier that many who are listening to you may not have recollected, but of course, if you just listening to Fatima, she was a lady who, of course, was speaking with Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, by the way, at the time of the election petition. How much of a good did that? Because that was the first time we saw you in front of the camera.
Senior lawyers, that was a novelty because under the Fourth Republic, in our recent history, that's the second time. That's only the second time that we've had the opportunity to go to Supreme Court. So that platform was so huge. But that being said, that wasn't my introduction to public speaking or political communication. As I said, as an NPP activist, at least I've been part of the NPP's national communications team for almost 10 years now. And I can say that for maybe your show is one of the few that have not had the privilege to represent our party, because we have a lot of accomplished and very seasoned communicators in the party. But over the years, I've really had a fair opportunity to represent women's voices in the New Patriotic Party and in the political landscape of this country representing the party and government on various political and even social platforms. So I've learned over the years to understand what is necessary, to understand the excesses of the work, and also to make sure I represent the voices of women, especially, very well, and to pave way for other young women to have the opportunity to speak up and speak out, and also to take up some sports in our political landscape. So with all those experiences, I think I will be fine, despite the challenges that await us.
We can only wish you well, Fatima, too.
Thank you. But let me use the opportunity to thank my boss, Eugene Ahi, who is currently the acting director of communications at the Jubilee. We've had a very good 4 years together, and I've learned so much from him and from our advisors, our media advisory team, and like Honorable Oboshi Kofi, Honorable Elizabeth O'Hins. I believe I could not have gotten here just by my efforts, but for the fact that a lot of these accomplished politicians and statesmen have given me the opportunity to also do something for the party and the government, and eventually I've had this nomination, which is overwhelming to me already, and in fact, as of now, it's just sinking in. So I will use this opportunity to say thank you to all my mentors and the whole of Ghana, and to let the women and youth know that I'm just one of them, and I count on all of them to be successful, given the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Fatimatu Abubakar, Deputy Information Minister nominee there. Of course, she'll be vetted, and of course, she's right. 16 deputy ministers, but in this list of deputy ministers, there are 10 ministers that female ministers that she's part of. I want to bring in now one of the giant killers in the NPP when it came to the parliamentary primaries. I'm talking about, he's also been nominated tonight for the Trade and Industry Ministry.
Thank you very much, my brother.
And I remember very well when you won the primary. I mean, because that was a giant killing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of focus on you. Now you're going to the Trade and Industry Ministry, a very, very important ministry for the president. This definitely, even with your experience at the Free Zones Board and all that, this must be a daunting task.
Thank you. I think the line is very clear. I don't know.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm just talking about your experience is there for all to see, but trade and industry is definitely still a daunting task.
Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's a privilege to have this opportunity this evening to be part of this discussion on your network. That's a very nice point that you raised, though. But I guess the kind of experience that I've gathered over the years, coupled with my corporate experience, gives me the opportunity and the clear mindset and readiness to take that task, and also to help the Minister for Trade and Industry to achieve the industrialization agenda of government. Days when I was a member of the committee on trade, subcommittee on trade and industry, and also after we won the 2016 election, I also worked with the transition team, the subcommittee on the trade and industry. So over the years, I have gathered some experiences with regards to knowing a lot about the trade matters and what happens as far as industrialization, and also working as the chief executive of the Ghana Free Zones Authority gives me that's the reality. But the point I want to raise here is that I believe that a lot of young people have come in now, and we believe that the experiences we have gathered over the years, those who were in corporate world, those who also came in with maybe their own entrepreneurs, push the nation forward to the state that we all envisage it to be.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ochre Baifi. And if you're just joining us and you haven't heard about the deputy ministerial list, I want to go through it for you very quickly about the few key names in there. Of course, we have one Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. He's Charles Edubai. He was a deputy minister in the first term. Now he's been elevated to a minister of state status. Now, the finance ministry, there's one surprise name for many, and that is John Kuma, who has been appointed now as the deputy minister. He was the chief executive of the one of the government's entrepreneurial agencies, and he's in there now as a deputy minister. He's going to be supported by Honorable Abena Osayasari, who was there before. At the trade ministry, you just heard there, Michael Otribefi is a man who deposed and removed the former chairman of the Finance Committee in Parliament in the passing of Dr. Sibe Yeboah. The trade ministry will have 3 deputies in all. One of them, another new face, is Herbert Krapper, who used to be a government spokesperson. And then we also have Nana Dukwa Isiama, who used to be at the Information Ministry, now at the Trade Ministry. Energy. The president maintains 2 of the former deputies, as in Mohammed Amin Adam and William Oreku Edu, but brings in a new face in Andrew Ejapa Mensah. You go to local government and you have Augustine Collins in team, Osei Bungsu Amwa, who is Obi Amwa, was there before as a deputy, and then Mate James Akosa also was there as a deputy before. For Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, again, there's a clear out of the former deputies, Thomas Imbomba and Kweku and Prichum Sapon. Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, again, another clear out of the former deputies. Alfred Tia Yeboah, who says, of course, he's been a key member in the GBA's executives in, I think, the Bono region. And he is in there as a Deputy Attorney General and supported by Dinah Asonaba Dapa. Food and Agriculture, Yao Frimpon Ado. Mohammed Hadi Tafiru is also there supporting the other deputy. Education Ministry, there are 2 deputies, John Intim Forjo and Gifty Chum Ampofo. If you go to Health, again, another clear out. You're not going to have the former, of course, individuals in, and brings in a new face in George Mrikuduka, who was the head of MIF. Remember the conversation surrounding had to respond to a lot of the issues. If you come to roads and highways, you have Mavis in Kansa Boydu, who is the MP, and Honorable Stephen Pampim Jalula, MP. Transport Ministry, we have Hassan Tampuli, who of course was the head of the we'll have Kofi Amankwa Menu. Interior, Nana Eya Kwansa. Communications and Digitization, and clear out of the 2 former deputy MP. Fisheries and Agriculture and Aquaculture, Moses Enim MP. Railway Development, Honorable Kweku Asante Boateng. Sanitation and Water Resources, Amidu Isahaku Chinia, who's MP. Tourism, Arts and Culture, Mark Okreku Mante, our own Mark Okreku Mante, of course, who heads the outfit here at Hits FM, and a renowned player in the field of entertainment, music production, all that, is in there as a deputy tourism minister. Gender, Children and Social Protection, Lariba Zuera Abudu, and pre just had there Fatima Abubakar. Youth and Sports as Evan Opoku Bobie. There's a lot of analysis to do on this, and I'm going to take a quick break. Newsline is starting right now. One more time, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Sasante as we begin to analyze. We'll be hearing from a few more of the deputies who have been appointed tonight. But also, will Parliament be called from recess, at least the committee of appointments, to vet the nominees, or they'll wait until the recess is over?
Private or public